In a world divided by unnecessary reboots, one studio single-handedly alienates one of the most dedicated fandom in pop culture. This summer, Ghostbusters 3, aka You're a Disgusting Sexist Man Baby if you don't like our hilarious movie.
Oh dear. This is a big one for us, actually. I haven't gone back and counted, but there are a lot of episodes we've done that we've said, I mean, it's not Ghostbusters bad, or we've referenced the Ghostbusters movie. Yep. And it's more funny because Anouk had never seen it until a couple of weeks ago when I showed it. It came on Netflix, and we watched it.
The first one.
We discussed in the
Am I on?
Wait. Speak into the mic.
Hello?
No, you are. Maybe just turn them up a smidgy.
Hello?
Yeah, you're alright. Do you want it pulled in closer?
It's okay.
All
Can
right.
you hear me from here?
Can you hear me?
Say again, something?
Do I sound a bit weird? Hello?
You're fine.
Hello? Hi.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, we've mentioned it a lot. I mean, even in episode 0, we mention it.
Oh.
I believe in episode 0 we mention it.
The first good Ghostbusters.
No, we mentioned this movie.
Oh, do we really?
Yeah, we do. We mentioned Ghostbusters 2016. I'm sure we mentioned it. It was in the list of the when we read it, the Sony films and Jumanji too. So
right.
That's the most recent day we've mentioned this film.
But I have to start by mentioning that I've submitted myself to medieval torture a few times. I gave 4 chances to that films, right? So in the cinema
with
once,
me, yeah, me and you both went, yeah.
Then home video standard version, then home video extended, and French extended. So
right,
I put the effort.
But I mean, well done, Yann. So before this film came out, I remember watching the trailer and thinking, "Oh God, this really doesn't look very good."
Yeah.
That kind of upset me because, of course, any female-driven film you want to celebrate because empowering women in entertainment is obviously something that we should all be striving for. But if the film is rubbish, it doesn't disempower women, actually. It probably makes you want to fight, harder for women behind and in front of the camera.
I think... sorry, did I cut you off or you finish your point?
No, well, I was just going to add that... but it also doesn't do anything. It's just a bad film. It has nothing to do with women at all if it's a bad film then, because it doesn't drive home its point. So this film actually shouldn't really be about women. It's just a bad film.
Right. So nowadays in media, it can be used as both the selling point and an escape route. Now I'm going to explain what that means because that might be quite a big statement. There are a huge amount of people, especially with the Star Wars series right now, on YouTube, online, that talk about the inclusion of social justice warriors and modern day themes that come into the films, and those modern day ideas are often used by the studio to explain why the movie didn't sell well. It's up there right now for why Han Solo that's one of the reasons why it didn't work. They're like saying that some people are claiming that the idea of social justice and modern ideas is why the film didn't hit, because many fans don't want to see that. They want to see what they grew up with Star Wars, which is a reasonable argument. People have expectations going into a movie, and if they aren't met, they come out with negative ideas. So especially with something like this, if it goes bad, but the studio can go, well, they just everyone didn't like this because it was women. They can use that as an idea as opposed to they didn't make a good movie. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And it's annoying that people use that because it's like, don't use something that it might be slightly politically charged and then use that against people because they don't like a film. Like, that's exactly like if you didn't like the film Black Panther. Like, that doesn't have to be a race issue. It doesn't have to be a gender issue. This has got something to do with a film. Like, focus on the films that actually are really good for maybe a group of people that are marginalized in the entertainment industry. If it's a good film, then fine, that empowers whoever it empowers. But if it's a bad film, then fuck any of the Sorry, excuse me, my friend. But I reiterate, fuck that. Like, focusing on that, because it doesn't prove anything.
So as a warning here, if you're looking for somebody that's going to bash the film because it's got 4 women in it, this isn't the podcast for you. There are many other places on the internet you'll find that. This will be a critique of how this film failed at being a film, and more importantly, how it failed to uphold the legacy and the importance that 1984's Ghostbusters started.
Yeah.
Shall we remind people of is this coming the week out after Ghostbusters? Right. So you'll know if you've listened to that episode our ratings of it. So we don't have to reiterate. It's all there. For me, I said it was legendary. It was one of these. It started a movement, and even we talked about Ghost Heads, which will come more into this one as well. So before we start, I found a timeline from the week, which nowadays I will save the link so Yann can actually post the things, because I know I mentioned a poster earlier about movie monsters and I couldn't find it in one of the previous episodes. So now I'm saving these links. So I'm going to give you a timeline from 1984, from the first Ghostbusters to now. This all comes from an article from the week, written by Scott. I think that's Melslow. We will post a link to this in the link dump. I won't read the whole article. I'll just read the points. So here we go. So 84, obviously Ghostbusters is released. 1989, so 5 years later, Ghostbusters 2 is released to a considerably less acclaimed but equally impressive box office gross. In July 2002, IGN, the video game and media entertainment media website, acquires a 1999 draft of the screenplay called Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent, written by Ghostbusters star Dan Aykroyd. The script is reportedly about the chaos that ensues when a hellish version of Manhattan, dubbed Manhelliton, becomes so overcrowded that the devil starts evicting its residents into the world of the living. The script also introduces a series of new Ghostbusters, including Frankie, a tough New Jersey punker, and Moira, a pretty but uptight gymnast and science grad. 2004, franchise star Ernie Hudson, who played Ghostbuster Winston, says that Bill Murray isn't interested in making the new Ghostbusters film because he doesn't do sequels. This was incidentally 2 years before Murray reprised his role of Garfield in A Tale of Two Kitties. Oh, the punnery of The Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrible. Hudson continued, "I'd love for it to go ahead, but it'd have to be soon or we'll be too old to bust anything. I'll doubt it'll ever happen." Now, bear in mind, this is 2004. Ernie Hudson is saying, we need to do it soon. Okay? 2005, Harold Ramis, rest in peace, Egon, tells Focus magazine that Ben Stiller is his first choice to star as a new Ghostbuster in the revised Murray-less Ghostbusters 3. So there would be Ghostbusters 3, but without Bill Murray. Which is now the version of Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent, which is now tentatively titled Ghostbusters in Hell. A new rewritten script transports the bumbling Ghostbusters into a parallel dimension via a portal in a New York City warehouse. January 2007, video game developer Zootfly begins early work of an unlicensed Ghostbusters video game sequel. Though Sony has a teaser video taken down, the early footage is impressive enough that several studios eventually come together to collaborate on the Ghostbusters video game. June 2009, Atari released the Ghostbusters video game, which features the voices of Murray, Aykroyd, Ramis and Hudson reprising their roles as the original 4 Ghostbusters. In an interview, Now Gamer, Aykroyd says that the game, which is set 2 years after the events of Ghostbusters 2, is essentially the third movie that he'd originally devised. Ghostbusters the video game goes on to sell more than 1 million copies. December 2009. The video game's success means that something's gonna happen with Ghostbusters 3, Ramis assures Heeb magazine. The old script has been thrown out in favour of a version of The Office writers Gene Stumpsky and Lee Ensberg that will introduce new younger Ghostbusters but will feature all the old guys. Ghostbusters 3 is slated to be filmed in the summer of 2010 and released in 2011. March 2010. Vulture reports that Columbia would like a younger director to take over the franchise, but the original Ghostbusters director, Ivan Reitman, contracts won't allow his replacement, and worse, the contract also stipulates that Reitman, Murray, Aykroyd, and Ramis each have the power to single-handedly veto and kill the project for any reason. More troubling news, in an appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman, Murray says that making Ghostbusters 3 is his nightmare and dismisses the idea of a third film as crazy talk. 2010, Murray tells GQ that recently, hopeful reports about him agreeing to star in the third Ghostbusters are all a bunch of crock. He goes on to disparage the screenwriters Stumpsky and Einsberg, saying that he'd been told by friends that Year One, the writing duo's previous film, was one of the worst things they'd ever seen in their lives. 2010, Aykroyd defends Stumpsky and Einsberg's Ghostbusters 3 script, saying that the pair wrote Bill the comic role of a lifetime. November 2010, Ghostbusters 3 reverts to focusing on the new generation of Ghostbusters. Aykroyd floats Anna Faris and Bill Hader as two possible contenders for the role. August 2011, Aykroyd raises other casting possibilities, including Matthew Gray Gubler, and that guy in 500 Days of Summer, probably meaning Joseph Gordon-Levitt. July 2012, Aykroyd announces that Stumpsky and Einsberg's script has been thrown out, but there's a new writing staff on Ghostbusters 3 now, and that he won't make Ghostbusters 3 unless it's perfect. September 2012, in an interview with Collider, Reitman backs away from the idea of directing a Ghostbusters sequel, saying that the original Ghostbusters should be remade instead. So there's the first instance of let's do a remake. October 2012, Deadline reports that Reitman is expected to finally get the long-gestated Ghostbusters reboot in front of cameras next summer for Sony Pictures. The remake idea is apparently off the table again. May 2013. In an interview with Larry King, Dan Aykroyd reveals the overall story for Ghostbusters 3. It's based on a new research that's being done into particle physics by a young man and woman at Columbia University, says Aykroyd. The world, or the dimension that we live in, our four planes of existence, length, height, width, and time, become threatened by some research that's being done. New Ghostbusters, have to come and solve the problem. He confirms that Murray is not scheduled to appear, but adds if Murray wants to walk in the door and be in the movie, they will find a place. ComingSoon.net reports that this version of Ghostbusters 3 would be likely to hit theatres in 2014 to mark the 30th anniversary of the original. February 2014, Harold Ramis dies at age 69. March 2014, Ivan Reitman, who directed the first two Ghostbusters movies, steps down from the director's chair of Ghostbusters 3. In an interview with Deadline, Reitman confirms that Ramis' death was a deciding factor. With Harold no longer with us, I couldn't see it. Nevertheless, Sony pushes forward with Ghostbusters 3. With Reitman attached as producer, the studio is seeking a really good director for a script. For that script has an original and very minor role. In hoping we can get it started by fall, set in New York, says Reitman. But given the logistics and stuff that happens the beginning of 2015 seems more likely. April 2014, Sony Pictures reaches out.
So this is another 2 years until the next film comes out.
Yeah.
So it goes on forever.
Yeah, this is a good job doing a quick summary of the article, Adam. not that I'm tackling your.
No, it was very interesting. It's just like
I can skip through the rest just to see it. You know, it's just
they basically they just spent so long in we could do it, and we could do it.
Development hell, yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Put it this way: it takes till about 2015 for the cast that we see in the film to be cast as the leads, and they were announced via a tweet that Paul Fig posted 4 headshots, I think. And everyone was on board by 2015. Well, those that were alive were with it. Yeah. Although there is an interesting point that A femme-centric reboot is a bad idea, says the original star Ernie Hudson in an interview with The Telegraph. I hope that if they go that way, at least they'll be funny, and if they're not funny, at least it'll be sexy. In an interview on Late Show with David Letterman, Bill Murray reiterates his support for a femme-centric Ghostbusters reboot, throwing out the same actors as he suggested in September. I'd go to watch that one in a second, he said. Okay, we'll leave it at that.
Mm.
Oh dear.
Also, so I'll reiterate, which seems to be the word of the episode. The only issue I have with gender in entertainment is when you feminize character name, mostly in Shakespeare's work.
Oh yeah, you said.
So other than that, I'm generally don't really care if you were a fan of Ghostbusters and you grew up with proton packs and you always wanted and dreamed to be in that specific new movie and you actually are involved or are in. That is great for you, really. It's just the studio that I do blame here, actually.
Yeah. Well, I remember playing the video game and it was pretty good. Way back in 2011. Yeah,
Okay.
that was fine. But I didn't read I remember IGN showing when people were bringing back, because obviously they announced when the trailer came out, it's like, oh shit, this is still a thing. People went back and read the third script for Ghostbusters 3, Hellbent. Hell Man Heliton.
Yeah, I think Sony, they just didn't realize that you don't feed the trolls and that you ignore the comments.
Yeah.
And they just, like, as I said in the intro, alienated the whole of the fandom. So if you, it's funny thing, because if you go to Ghostbusters.com, which is the official Sony vehicle website, all the images on the homepage, everything, no sign of the new Ghostbusters anywhere. You just have to go into the list of movies that existed, and then you find out that Ghostbusters, which was remarketed for home video, Ghostbusters Answer the Call, so it's more convenient to talk about it. It's just on one page. There are no celebrations, nothing. It's just like this almost didn't happen.
Like they've rewritten, like they're trying to write it out of history, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's what it looks like from the website.
But they we'll get to the teaser at the end. So yeah, sorry for going on. Do you know what actually happened? When I was reading it, I was getting intrigued. I'm like, oh shit, what happens next? So I apologize for just reading somebody's article verbatim, but I will post the link to it for everyone to enjoy.
Anyway, don't worry, because I figured halfway through that I should do some acting business, so when you watch the video...
I noticed you do something at the corner of my eye. I was like, what are you guys doing over there? Is Yann trying to signal me to shut the fuck up for a bit?
No. Okay, so let's talk bilingual corner. So as I said, I've watched in original version and in French, and there are a few interesting things that allowed me to realize how sometimes they adapt from into French.
Right.
So, for instance, the money at the very start, the money Abby is got from selling the book that she was not supposed to sell. 3/4 of that was for a mini fridge. That the money she got. That's the joke. In French, it's 9/10 of a new mini bar.
Oh.
So yeah, in France we are alcoholics, and we're also addicts to sex, because when they included the fact that the trailer was the most hated at the time into improvising some lines for the movie, when they watch the comments and one of them is saying, "Ain't no bitch gonna hunt no ghosts." That's what the comment is in English. In French, it basically translates into from that YouTube commenter that would like to have those ladies drenched into his semen.
What?
Oh wow.
Yes. Also, the bird comment. The bird comment with the guy firing them, like the bird. It's a bird thing.
Flip. Yeah. What's
There's
that?
some
It's a bird.
lesbian hate into some of those lines in the French version.
Oh God.
Jesus.
Oh no.
And Abby, when she says to herself that she would strip for Benny if he got her 3 wonton, She swears that on her ex-girlfriend's head. Do we have any idea in the English version normally what her sexuality is, Abby?
No, I remember there was something that they wanted to make Kate McKinnon's character a lesbian. Like Paul Feig wanted to do that, but Sony went, no way, that's not happening.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sake. Are we still scared of lesbians? Really?
I mean, I think Sony. I wonder where when did they lose faith? Because it looks that by Yann's comment there saying that you can't really find it on Sony's page at all anymore, like the website doesn't exist. I wonder where in the process they like realized that this wasn't going to work.
I don't. Another quick example: the when they're trying to find the leaflets, green leaflets with the logos.
Yeah.
They talk about it's the terrorism thing. So fuck, we're in French it's a sexual harassment campaign.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Wow, it really is. It isn't just. I think I always forget that when you translate a film, it's not like direct translate the word. You have to translate the context and the for the sentence to make sense, like grammatically. Yeah. So you have to change jokes.
And sometimes mostly the sounds. There is one which is way better in French. So when Kevin says, "Well, I tried the acting thing," in French is, "I had a superhero career."
That's a better joke.
Oh, that's good.
That's a way better joke.
Much better.
Yeah, and there is also this whole, but that was improvised. Maybe I have a feeling most of the film was improvised. But unlike Thor 3, here they kept everything that was improvised. The Mike hat thing.
Yeah.
It was improvised on the spot by Chris Hemsworth apparently, but I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. And one last thing then, when Patty comes to the Ghostbusters Chinese HQ, she's waiting, she's reading an article on some random thing in English, and in French she just read an article on the Kim Kardashian Kanye West sex tape.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
Lots of sex.
Yeah. That was my my bilingual corner. There are loads of puns in this movie. I really don't like puns. I realized actually if they're just you're bombarded with that, and it's I don't know. When I left the theater when I saw it when it was released, I was like, oh okay, it's basically a 2 hours SNL sketch.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Totally is.
Right. So,
which. Sorry, it goes in circles then, because the original one was supposed to be an SNL thing, but yeah, well.
Should we remind people who's in this film? So, Ghostbusters Answer the Call, starring
Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, Kate McKinnon, Leslie Jones, and Chris Hemsworth.
Cool. The script is the biggest problem in this film.
So it's written by Katie Dippold.
That sounds right, yeah.
And Paul
Feig.
Is it Feig?
It's Paul Feig. Paul Feig
is a director as well.
Paul Feig is a good director. He's worked on the American Office. Like, he's done some good stuff. I have to believe that this is to do with the script and just a troubled production.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the production kind of got in the way of something, and they didn't have time. There was a deadline issue.
Well, it fears of reading another article. I skimmed through this other one, which I'll link from flickeringmyth.com, which basically says that there was arguments on set between actors. The actors had to sign an NDA so that nothing got out that there was problems on set, which is even more worrying because when YouTube videos, for example, Red Letter Media did a really good one with a Plinkett review, and their Half in the Bag, to mention them again, they show like clips of Paul Feig and other people involved in the project talking about how much fun they were having on set, and from the stuff that comes out, it's like, no, it sounded like a nightmare. It sounded like people were arguing with each other. And I know that happens when some people just don't get on well together, but a lot of the time, when there's production issues and cast are arguing, that usually means that they have a problem with the film that they're doing, that they're frustrated about something.
I,
9 times out of 10, it's to do with creative input, right?
Especially if you are also then forcing them to improvise, and you know that your cast don't get along. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you know that your cast are like outside the film, outside set, they aren't friends, maybe they shouldn't improvise, because they're not going to have a nice... the only way that you can make an actor have really good chemistry on set is to give them a really good script and force them to follow the script and don't go outside any of the lines, because especially if they don't have a good chemistry naturally.
Yeah, I don't know where this wonton thing is coming from and what it means. What's the point? Did you...
I don't know why there's an obsession, and that's pretty much like, it's like an ongoing joke.
Yeah,
but it's almost like saying, was there a wonton joke in the first Ghostbusters? Is that what they're trying to... Like
they have Chinese at one.
Yeah, exactly.
They have Chinese at one point, and then she rings the buzzer and goes, "We've got one," and they have to stop eating the Chinese. That's the only time I remember the.
Shout out to Kara Sony, by the way, who's the Indian actor playing Benny. He's
in Deadpool, yeah. He's
Dopinder.
Yeah. He's very cute.
I mean, he had a good year in 2016.
He did.
He had Deadpool, and then he had this.
Yeah. He was consistently good.
No, but talking about subtle reference, the fact that was it Kevin who was constantly, when he was supposed to be hearing something loud, like putting his fingers in his on his eyes, it's coming from a line in the very first scene on the first film, when Dan Aykroyd says, "Listen, do you smell something?" That's why it's there. That whole Kevin putting his fingers in his ear and eyes when he's not supposed to be doing that. That's the
Okay.
Yeah, that's a stretch.
Interesting.
Oh Jesus! So Anouk just said about, you know, your actors getting on. So it's basically, from what it's said here, I don't know how accurate it is. It seems like all the cast signed on because they loved Ghostbusters. Right. We're 3 actors, right? If somebody came up to us and said, "We're going to do another Ghostbusters," you'd jump at it.
Totally, of
You
course.
would absolutely get on board with that,
Sure.
because Ghostbusters is even the only 2 movies of Ghostbusters and the cartoon, which I watched a couple of episodes. I mean, I'm an adult now, so I don't have an affinity for it, but it was still a pretty decent cartoon. It looked,
Yeah.
like they were good. You know, they were. You would do it because you're like, yeah, I liked Ghostbusters, and I think we could do something good with it.
This is why I never have issue with actors doing bad films, because it's not their fault at all, usually, because actors quite a lot of the time, unless maybe you're Tom Cruise, and that's really rare that you become Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You have no say in any of the process or any of the production.
Well, it's quoted that McCarthy said she wanted to do a good version of the cartoon, in the spirit of the cartoon, not this lame duck of a script. Right. So
who heard her say that? When did she say that?
it's in an email. Oh no, that's about. I'll read that small bit. Melissa McCartney and Feig argued on set. The rumor is that all the cast signed on because they liked the original movie. In McCarthy's case, she signed on for love of the cartoon spin-off. However, this was before they'd read the script by Feig and Kate Dippold. And then it's like go on that they're stuck. Basically, they're stuck in this film that they didn't. It isn't what they wanted.
Yeah, that listen, do you smell something? It's from an article on Slash Film, Ghostbusters Easter eggs. Nice article.
Okay.
The Daniel Ramis, Harold's son, plays the metalhead who gives a high five to Rowan when he enters the concert hall.
Oh, nice. That's kind of nice.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Oh yeah.
I don't understand how a woman writer wrote this for women. Like, unless
she's just a bad writer.
people were stopping. It just. I don't know. I don't think any okay. I love going on girls' night, right? Like I really enjoy being around just girls and with a bottle of wine and maybe a Chinese takeout, and you just, having a really girly night, whatever. I have never once talked about queefing.
Oh, wow, okay. But you
Ever.
you mean you don't record it and play it back for your friends to like hee hee hee?
It's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. Like, I have never spoken about like I don't think I think I might have said that word once even before this episode.
I mean, I just quickly looked up what her filmography is, the writer, which is, she probably got this off the back of Spy, which is Melissa McCartney, and I believe Paul Feig directs Spy as well, actually.
I think
they worked together on Spy.
Bridesmaids, but yeah.
That's what. Paul, of course, Paul Feig did Bridesmaids, which is a good film, but that's not written by Kate Dippold. And then Kate Dippold went on to do Snatch, which is another Amy Schumer movie.
That's another
afterwards.
pretty female-driven film that is really good and really funny. And
Yeah.
so all of these people that are saying that women can't be funny, it's the script. It's the Bridesmaids was really funny, and I think that was improvised a lot too, because quite a lot of the actors, whatever, on the set are really good at improvisation. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was improvised as well. So it has nothing to do with the actors.
No.
And I think people need to understand this, that how if you're improvising, fine, but there are so many other people that are involved in making a film that you cannot just then look at what you are seeing and then blame those people for what's going on. So this is why this whole thing of like women can't drive a film is absolute rubbish.
No, it seems like it was set up to fail. Not as in like a conspiracy theory of like, let's make a bad Ghostbusters movie, because let's face it, Sony was dying for a hit. It's well known that this film is rushed out and made because Spider-Man 2 flopped. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi made a really good film. Love it. Excellent video game, right? Game of all time.
Yeah.
But The Amazing Spider-Man 2 featuring Andrew Garfield was so bad and so categorically abysmal that it killed Sony's Spider-Man career. It killed it so bad that they had to unwillingly and kind of forcibly sell a bit of their rights of Spider-Man back to Marvel so that they could stay alive, because that movie failed so badly.
I mean, the politics of making films, it gets so ridiculously bloody and ridiculous. It's like, it just back and forth and back. It's literally like it is political.
I mean, when you're making a film because you need to make some money back, that's never a good sign. It's never a good sign for creativity to flourish.
It's a shame that The Amazing Spider-Man didn't go well, because Andrew Garfield is a phenomenal actor.
Yes, he is.
He is.
But people noticed because he went on to do some amazing stuff.
I mean, it sucks for Sony, but it freed up Andrew Garfield to go on and do Angels in America, and also I think 2 years after that failed, he did Hacksaw Ridge,
yeah,
which he was nominated for as well.
Awesome accent work.
Yes, yeah.
I've
Mel Gibson film.
I definitely.
My dad watched that on the flight and really loved that film. Sorry,
I hate Mel Gibson. Sorry, I don't know why. Nicolas Cage and Mel Gibson, I'm just not fans of. What was my point? I'm not really sure. Oh, Andrew Garfield. Honestly, I think he's a great actor. I think he was miscast as well. I don't think he was a good Spider-Man. And that is probably just my opinion, but I just don't think that he was a good Spider-Man. But also it's not totally his fault that that's a bad film, like, not at all. I'm just saying that he was miscast. Yeah.
Right. So now that we've set up the whole idea of production hell, let's talk about the actual film.
Yeah, they have a pass at some point, I think, which was quite gratuitous on audiobooks. Like when the first the guy the owner of the Partridge Mansion meets Erin for the first time. So I've found your book. There's an ebook and also an audiobook, but obviously I didn't get the audiobook because I know how to read.
Where's that joke? Is that an extended one?
Oh, maybe.
I don't remember that one. That's when Ed Begley Jr. turns up, whose father was in 12 Angry Men, and Ed Begley Jr. is a good actor.
He's also in Better Call Saul, no?
Yeah, he's Dave from Davison, Maine.
I think that's absolute rubbish.
About audiobooks?
Yeah.
For example, I grew up on audiobooks. You know how if everyone says they read Harry Potter, I didn't. I listened to Stephen Fry read me Harry Potter via audiobook.
Yeah, but also, so actually, go on. Sorry, I cut you off.
And even right now, I mean, look how big Audible is. Audible is huge. If audiobooks weren't popular, you know, and like I don't think audiobooks are for people that can't read. They are there to help. I mean, I used to struggle with reading, and I used to have speech problems as well, which is funny to be when you think about it now, actually, because I remember going in for an appointment to see my nurse before I moved to high school, and she went, "Do you still go to speech therapy?" I'm like, I had no idea I went to speech therapy.
Excellent.
Side note. But yeah, audiobooks now are just because everything is so you can take it with you. You can listen in a car. You don't have to have to sit down and read. But of course, books still exist, right? Books are still being sold in their hands full. For example, if we bought the Irvin Welsh book, Dead Man's Trousers, but I also bought the audiobook because I like the performance of the guy who reads it. You know,
I think as well, like there are some books I prefer to read, and there are some books that like don't actually work in audiobook personally. Like before bed, I like to listen to an audiobook. I don't actually like to listen to audiobooks during the day, like because I'll listen to podcasts if I'm traveling. That's just the way that I do it. And I think quite a lot of people are like that. Because I was brought up on reading, so I still enjoy. There are some books that I will read, and I won't even read on my phone or on like a Kindle. Like I want to read a book.
Yeah.
So it's got nothing to do, like just because you do one thing doesn't mean you can't do the other. That's so ignorant and annoying.
Yeah, and
I don't even remember that joke. That
No.
joke might not be in the theatrical one. That might be in the extended one.
yeah, and I have to say that plenty of audiobooks, some autobiographies are way better being read by the
Yes,
people who wrote the.
I
Yeah.
just finished the life Bryan Cranston's A Life in Parts, where he reads it, and it's excellent. It's fantastic when he reads it.
They can
Amazing.
add stuff on top.
Yeah,
obviously,
you get
so-
the emotion.
Yeah, for sure. Shall we start by discussing the opening scenes? For example, we discussed in the opening scene in the original Ghostbusters, and this one kind of plays it note for note, i.e., it ends in the exact same style. Is somebody screaming, even when it's paid off, somebody getting slimed, but
Well,
it kind of sets the tone of where this film is going.
shout out to the background artist first of all. That steals the show.
Oh yeah, the male guy on the left hand side of the screen when they're in the main room, the guy that like excessively nods. It's unbelievable. The first time I saw this with Yann in the cinema, I even went, Jesus, this guy is overacting. Like that's how noticeable it was. But every time I've seen it, I've noticed this background actor.
In this scene, there's something that doesn't make sense at all. I think I don't know what. So at the end, the guy is in that slime basement and everything, and you really feel that he just died. And then there's the credits, and boom, he's back.
Yeah, it's not. It's really weird because the ghost locks the whole property. It's like, oh, he's trapped in there.
Yeah, was it just because they wanted to have up and down moments in emotionally in the movie, with no real reason why he came back?
I don't think it's explained. I mean, it's a throwaway joke that he then like goes and finds Egg Begley Jr. and says like, "Can you find somebody?" Because there's a joke about him like shitting his pants the whole time, as well as like his pants were full. They were fully loaded. It's like, yeah, great joke. Do you remember that joke?
It might be because I'm British, and maybe a little bit prudish. I don't know, but I cannot stand any jokes on farting, shitting, pissing, any toilet humor. Like seriously, get out my face.
So you're
like,
not
I cannot stand. And even if it's like funny, like there are some really intelligent jokes, but I just can't stand it. It's just so childish, and I just don't find it funny.
So you don't find the bridesmaid diarrhea scene that enjoyable then? You know, when they're trying on the wedding dresses and they've had like the dodgy meal beforehand. It's a bit much. That scene.
It's a bit much. Like there are moments where it is really funny, like when I don't know names, but when the kind of antagonist forces the other person who took them to the bad restaurant to eat nuts, because she was like, do you feel yeah, oh no, I feel fine, because she obviously doesn't want to look bad in front of this other person because she just took everyone to a restaurant and now they're like shitting themselves and they have like horrible diarrhea. So she's like, yeah, I feel fine. Everything's fine. And then the other girl's like, okay, well, why don't you have some food? There's just like moments, like I find that really interesting.
I take it you won't be a great fan of the new Muppets movie.
Oh.
Which one?
Melissa McCarthy with the Muppet ejaculating for 10 minutes.
Oh, that joke has been done before. I mean, that movie looks like it's trying to be both Sausage Party meets Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Who framed the Sausage Party?
Who Framed the Sausage Party? Didn't the Muppet Studio, didn't the AMC sue and say you can't say Muppets? No, the state of like Jim Henson and that.
I think.
So that you can't refer to the Muppets or Sesame Street in your marketing of this movie. We will not stand.
No.
We're an institute. We're a child institute. We won't be having this.
Yeah, I mean...
look at Avenue Q, which is a very successful stage musical, which is, it deals with that, an adult sort of Muppetry, right?
Sure.
And then look at that childish grass that'll, will not do well. Right, Ghostbusters. Sorry, we're getting distracted. It's turning into Army of Darkness again.
Talking about suing, we didn't talk in the first episode about the Huey Lewis, Ray Parker Jr. situation.
Yeah, we didn't, did we? Yann, you want to explain that? Because you explained that to me this afternoon.
So basically, when the time came to do music for Ghostbusters 1984, Huey Lewis and the News were asked to record something, and they said they couldn't because they were already booked on Back to the Future. So the job went on to Ray Parker Jr., who was handed one of the Huey Lewis and the News called I Want a New Drug. And they said to him, okay, we want something like this for Ghostbusters. And they basically lifted the whole bass line, and pretty much the whole thing is this.
Yeah.
So obviously there was suing happening, and Huey Lewis won.
The thing is about musical suing is it's so difficult to write an original song. Every chord sequence in the world has to be done by now. I mean, music has existed for God knows how long. For probably even before the modern era, like after AD, that probably existed way before as well. Like we go super far back.
Yeah, that's a big problem because I'm sure that there have been times when someone will try and sue just because they think they can.
Well,
because they use like a little bit similar.
My point was, because I forgot, I got distracted halfway through my own point, is that it seems to me that only successful songs get sued, like Stairways to Heavens or Ghostbusters. If Ghostbusters, right, the movie had been ill received, nobody really saw it, the music didn't really do anything, they wouldn't. I don't think Huey Lewis and that would sue. It's a lot of the cases that big artists, it's never usually the artist, it's the licensing company and the record company that sue because they're losing out on money that they think their client could be getting.
Yeah.
Usually that's the case. I mean, every Stairway to Heaven's lawsuit is nobody's ever won ever against Stairway to Heaven, and it's the big one. Everyone says that Stairways to Heaven sounds like another song. It's like, just get over the fact, right, that there's a massively successful song, right, that does something, and then you look back and go, hang on a minute, that sounds a bit like that. It's different. It's so difficult because a lot of songs, sampling is huge. Like, people buy chunks of other songs and credit artists, and they get a part of it, and that's fine. That's how the industry works.
It's also like the way that our ear is made, like constructed, and our brain and culturally and stuff. We like certain sounds, so obviously music is going to sound very similar in certain genres because we like a certain sound and we like a certain thing. And so those types of sounds are going to make the money and they're going to make a name for the whoever's involved. So it's like any business or anything who wants to make money, there's going to be similar things because it's already been shown that that's going to make money. Like, it's just the way that it works. As soon as money gets involved, that's when creativity sometimes can get a bit...
So back to Ghostbusters. Anouk, the first time you saw this movie after the opening credits were finished, you were like, yeah, that was fine. What do you feel about it now, having seen the original Ghostbusters?
Well, no, I can't stand this film. Mostly because...
When did you lose faith? How far into the movie did you lose it? Was it the queef joke that went, oh, I'm done with this?
It might have been because it was like in the beginning of the film, so it didn't even give you time to like the characters, which you don't, because you don't learn anything about the characters. You don't have any connection with any of them.
There's a lot of exposition going on in this film. There are huge scenes. I bet Yann's sick of exposition because he's seen the extended cut, so he probably gets all of the.
That's the worst way to, because when Rowan sometimes repeats kind of a mantra, he basically gives you the 3 acts of the movie.
Oh, does he?
Charge the lines, break the barrier, open the vortex. That's the 3 things that are basically happening in the movie, and he keeps repeating like. Yeah, I'll just like to point out something. I think this failure is a symptom of something. More and more studios these days notice what Marvel did with their Marvel Cinematic Universe and want a part of it.
Yep.
And they think they can start their own universe with the snap of a finger.
Yeah.
Well, the very first logo card that we have on this movie is Ghost Core.
Yep. And it features in the Ghost Heads documentary. They invite a load of the representatives of the American Ghostbusters, like in every state, to come down for the launch of Ghost Corps. And I'm watching the documentary going, what the fuck is Ghost Corps? What is that meant to be their Marvel Studios thing?
It was formed in March 2015 by Sony to create a Ghostbusters cinematic universe.
Oh, right.
And expand the brand into films, television series, and merchandise. A company headed by Reitman and Aykroyd, along some other partners. The company's first project was to be a live-action film with a male-oriented cast, planned to be produced and released after the female-led Ghostbusters. The film was to have been produced by Channing Tatum and some other interesting people, but it was cancelled.
Obviously, because of the reception and the box office, the final score of this movie, which just barely scrapes over its budget, actually.
Well,
Its budget was cut, by the way. The budget was higher than what it's marketed as well. And it was cut even lower halfway through the thing because the studio head was fired and replaced by somebody new who repeatedly did it for other films. For example, he did it to X-Men Origins Wolverine got cut as well. Its budget was cut. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the one with Deadpool?
Wait, what?
X-Men Origins Wolverine, is that the one with Deadpool, or is that the?
It's yes.
Yeah, so that might explain that as well.
Yeah.
Well, it actually did. Apparently, it was the highest grossing live action comedy domestically of 2016.
This was?
Apparently.
What?
So the film grossed $229 million worldwide against a production budget of $144 million, which actually isn't that much of a profit if you think of the amount that some films make and the amount that Ghostbusters, the first one, made as a profit and as a universe and as a phenomena.
Well, I mean, in the last episode, we translated what that's actually worth. You know, how much Ghostbusters actually made.
Right. But also just like emotionally, like that's actually not that big a profit. Because it's only like maybe 110 million more than the budget, which is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong, but when you think of
but
it's still considered as a box office bomb though. So
of course it is, because nobody liked it.
Exactly.
Nobody cared. Remember when Batman versus Superman was 2016, right?
Yeah.
That was the same year. That was the year that everyone started fighting against critics, because superhero movies have been loved for generations, and if you make a bad one, people, if critics don't like it but fans do, they started arguing. I mean, nobody that liked Ghostbusters came out and tried to defend this, did they? I don't remember that happening.
No, they wouldn't.
So,
I mean, you see that in interviews, like if the Letterman and, late night shows, there's a few of them.
Well, it wasn't 2016, so it'd be like Jimmy Kimmel, all that lot.
Colbert.
Steve Colbert. They're American, whatever.
Yeah, but...
Graham Norton all the way.
Yeah, of
Even
course.
Jonathan Ross, when Jonathan Ross was going as well. That was good too.
Yeah, but I mean, watching them on YouTube, when we were researching this, Bill Murray and...
Oh, you mean that interview? Yeah.
They look so...
dead.
Just...
Oh, yeah, with the sound of silent music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
darkness, my old friend.
The internet took it to a whole new level, of course. But actually watching the interview and watching their face, like, they don't look happy. And I think if they actually cared, they would definitely be happy.
I think I also read that the cameos were forced. Like Bill Murray, right?
So he did not want to be there.
So if Bill Murray walks into the scene, sits down, the scene happens around him. That's it.
Yeah,
You know,
it
it's,
does.
again, Red Letter Media said this first. They said that when they saw Bill Murray on the TV as like the ghost debunker, they thought this is going to be his cameo. That's it.
Yeah.
None of them are good. I mean, Ernie Hudson's comes at the very end of the film.
Yeah.
Where he's like, you can't keep stealing my cars. And I mean, I actually did laugh at Dan Aykroyd's one, I will admit, but that's because it was the Dan Aykroyd's delivery, not because of the writing. Where he's the taxi driver and he goes, nah, I don't. He's like, no, I don't take any. I don't go downtown. I don't. I don't take ghosts, and I ain't afraid of no ghosts. It's like all this sort of stuff. It's like, all right, whatever.
It's ironic that for a movie filled with ghosts, human beings are barely human beings. I talked about the guy with the bird joke, the dean of college, Thomas Shanks.
Yeah,
the
what
character.
a pointless scene.
And a real human being would never do that. What?
No, exactly. Like, have any of you three been fired?
No.
No.
I haven't been fired, but I've got a good story. Oh, okay. So, my mum hates this story, so I apologise because my mum listens to this. So this was back before I started ACS. I figured, right, I've got my place. I was like, right, I need to get a job just to like have some extra money before I move to Glasgow. So I phone up my old work and I go, hi, because if you've been employed, you phone a number and then you're fast tracked through. You don't have to do the application. You can go in for an interview if there's one. So I phone up, I say who I am. I was like, right, okay. She's like, when did you work last? And I give them the date. And she's like, just 1 second. And I hold for a bit, maybe a minute. So she comes back and she says, hi there, Mr. Dick. Unfortunately, next to your file name, there's a little note that says, do not rehire. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, thanks very much. And I hung up and I kind of stood there for a minute and went, I hope surely that's not true. And then my mum later asked, she's like, oh, how did the phone call go? I went, there's a note next to my file that says, do not rehire. And she's like, she just was not happy at me she was so mad at me for the next like 2-3 weeks. It was so bad. Yeah, my mum was not happy. I mean, who would be if your son has do not rehire next to him? I don't actually know. Oh, I do know what I did. I just hated that job so much. I was so unwilling to do anything. I was like,
right.
I used to work. It was like a supermarket. It was a British supermarket that also had a retail department, and I hated working in the food section. So I would often just sneak upstairs to work in the retail section.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I got rehired. Do not rehire.
We talked in the original movie episode how everything that is funny comes from the situations and it comes organically.
Yeah.
I have no idea when gags like, I can think of 7 uses of a cadaver today. Like, what?
But yeah.
Well, I think everyone could.
I mean, like, it's just like also when every time she's building a new stuff for the Proton Pack, she's adding plenty of tech language to just, like, I don't know, to show off.
Do you remember the marketing stunt that they said they hired a scientist so that the science was real the whole way through the movie? I'm like, come
Who
off
cares? Also, it kind of doesn't matter.
I never watched the first Ghostbusters movie and went, wow, the science. Like you buy into the science because, like I said in the episode, it's like the world is grounded.
Yeah.
You believe it, right? You don't believe anything in this film. It's just...
It's not a documentary.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, so weird, at the concert, the Ozzy Osbourne cameo is different depending on the cut.
Oh, really?
Right.
In original cut...
He just turns up in the theatre one. It's like, Ozzy Osbourne's in this film.
Yeah, and you don't understand what he's saying. In the extended cut, is more like, oh, those wankers, the Black Sabbath did that in 74 or something, which makes a bit more sense than just him shouting, I just had a dream or something. I don't remember what it was in the original.
Sharon or some shit like that.
I don't remember.
I don't remember what he shouts either. I mean, it's meant to be isn't it meant to be like a heavy metal festival, but it's like at 4 p.m. It's like midday. It's like so bright outside. It's clearly not the right time to be having that set would be on. So they arrive at a festival like in the afternoon or night. My friends are in a band and they play they play 6:30 slots now, which is a relatively late in the day slot. Like the 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock slot is like the smaller bands.
Yeah.
At a festival. So
also, if you think about it, every male characters in this movie is an asshole or stupid, except Erin's boyfriend.
Who doesn't make the theatrical cut.
Yeah,
No.
yeah, is in the extended cut, is nice at first, saves her ass at the very beginning, but then he just ignores her once she's like, oh, ghosts are real and everything. So
There's I know in the extended cut there is a scene where it's like Erin or the Kirsten Wiig character goes off and sulks for a bit. Like, just sits in a hotel room and sulks. That's why she's not there when the ghost takes over Melissa McCarthy's character and when the other three are in the Ghostbusters headquarters. Like, that's why she's not there. But that's not explained in the theatrical cut. She's just not there for some reason. And you don't care. You're like,
really don't
whatever.
care.
She's just not here at the moment.
I just thought that she was coming back from going to the mayor and like freaking out in a really posh restaurant.
Oh, that was the scene I talked about in the first film. You know how Lewis Tully's like when he runs away from the dog demon, he's like can't get the door open,
Right?
Which is a funny joke. If they bring it back for no reason in this film, her banging on the windows when there's a door.
No, they made it obnoxious because they made her screaming the whole time.
Yeah,
and it's like, if you're going to scream, I don't want to listen to you.
And they add on top of it, like, oh, she doesn't know it's not a door up or thing. Like, and that's the exact scene where I suspect they were planning, because that's the only reason I see for that thing in there. Sony was planning a Jaws reboot.
There's way too much going on. Like, that is ridiculous. Why would they ever think that someone would watch that and go, do you know what we need? Jaws to come back, but not to watch the first Jaws. We want a whole new... No.
You know how they would fuck up Jaws, right?
So bad.
It would so fuck up Jaws right now. Jaws would be a film about they're all on the beach and it's just the movie would... You know how the start of Jaws is so good? Like, it's perfect for what that film is. They would start Jaws... If the same people rebooted in the way that Ghostbusters is, Jaws would start with, like, somebody walking through a Speedo shop looking for what pair of shorts they're going to buy.
Oh,
that's how it would start. And then
that's so weird, cringe though. Like, oh.
Or somebody would be watching the original Jaws and going, that's not a big shark.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't look real.
I've seen some Papa John's product placement. I don't know if you want
Oh.
Do you want to know about there's another joke. There's a great joke that's highlighted by Red Letter Media again, which I'll mention in the podcast because it's a great spot and I wouldn't have seen it without them. So you know how Papa John's is the sponsor for this film, right? The whole thing. There's a scene in the middle of the movie where they're like eating pizza, which is Papa John's, but they're drinking out of red cups because they're probably drinking Coke, but Coca-Cola isn't affiliated with Papa John's. So you can't show somebody eating Papa John's and drinking Coke because you'd be advertising, it'd be false advertising. So
right, okay. So we were watching Better Call Saul the other day, and there's a scene with Saul Goodman and Kim Wexler, and they're in an outside eating place, but it's like one of those I don't know what they're called. They have it's like
it was
a
like it was a side of the road hot dog sort of vendor thing.
Vendor, thank you. Exactly, and they'd wrapped all of the food and all of the drinks in like the cardboard brown paper thing, and that was a really good way of getting away from product placement, but not making it so obvious that you're like, oh, that's why they did it. Like, the only reason why we talked about it afterwards is because, one, we're actors and we see things that other people might not, but we also realized that, like, that's a super clever way of doing it. And it is really annoying when you watch a film and immediately you're like, that's product placement. That is not the way that product placement should work, because it's in a very kind of conspiracy theory way. It's kind of supposed to be subliminal. Yeah. Like, you're supposed to be like, oh, actually I feel like a Coke and it's all my own decision.
Yeah, the paper and the bottles is funny because it's indoors, so it's clearly designed to hide the thing, because I'm not sure it is like this here, but the craft paper and alcohol is a big thing when you want to still have your booze and walk in the streets in the US.
Yeah, because you're not allowed to drink outside. I think that's the rule.
Yeah, because it's the land of the free and the home of the brave.
But alcohol is evil.
Yeah.
Remember Prohibition, folks. I was going to say something about... Oh yeah, I think my favorite hiding labels was from Neverending Story, where he's having the breakfast at the start of the film and they've just turned all the jars round so you can just see the ingredients.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a good way.
That's a good way.
Yeah, you have to make sure that the actors are not fiddling.
Yeah. Everything was faced away from the camera. It was brilliant.
So when you do your acting business, don't touch the jars.
Don't turn the jars round, yeah.
And don't eat, because we might need to have a few.
The props department will come on, look, it's fine. Just don't turn the jar round, okay?
There are a few things interesting in this movie. Well, one, the machine was Dalek shaped, which I thought was, oh, that's cool. The evil machine that Rowan was working on to unleash all the ghosts. It looked a bit like a Dalek.
He looked like a villain from Crash Bandicoot.
He did.
Like, his lair looks exactly like an evil scientist from a video game. Like, there's a level in Crash Bandicoot 1 where you have to fight a guy called, I think it's Pinstripe or something, and he, like, has a laboratory that looks exactly like the room layout in that. I'm like, I know, Sony, you love advertising your own games in your film, but don't build a Crash Bandicoot set in a Sony film. Just don't do it.
No.
Is it just me, or does the PKE meter look a bit like a rotating sword sheet?
Oh, I'm trying to remember
The,
what it actually looks like in this film.
The psychokinetic energy meter.
The thing that's like blue and flies round and stuff?
No, it's pink and it's sword teeth shaped, and it that's the whole thing turning.
Oh, that.
Oh, yeah.
A bit.
So this is how much we didn't enjoy it. There are so many things we've just completely forgotten, and that's not a good sign.
I mean, I want to bring up an excellent point here. Do you guys remember the set pieces of Ghostbusters 1?
Mm-hmm.
So it goes like library scene where the ghost is set up, flash to introduce our characters in a university. Then they go and visit the first place where the ghost was. Then they get fired. Then they build their own company. Then they go and deal with Slimer in the building. Yada montage going on and on and on and on. This film not only directly tries to remake Ghostbusters, it tries to do the exact same scenes in the exact same order.
Yeah, that's not.
It's so lazy. It's like, we're writing a new Ghostbusters film. No, you're not. You're just recycling what the first one was, but just trying to make it slightly different. You've changed a hotel with Slimer for a rock concert with some demigod sort of thing. You know, it's beat for beat, except we don't... And even they come back with the Walter Peck character, but just so poorly done. Where the mayor in the first film wasn't against the Ghostbusters, really.
No, he loved them.
It was more to do with the Walter Peck, the Environmental Protection Agency. In this film, they're like, yeah, you need to stop what you're doing. We're going to take all the credit. Thanks for your work, sort of thing. That wasn't really a thing in the first one, was it? Maybe a bit in the second. And then in the second, they get banned, but it gets overruled from doing ghost busting.
It didn't work. I mean, I think some ideas could have worked, but it wasn't done well.
No.
The only thing that I remember about that film is that it was so gaudy. Like, the colors that they were using and the colors of the walls and the set was just, it was so in your face. And it was like, why are you trying to look like a brothel? Like, I don't know. It was so, the colors were so intense.
I mean, it's just so poor. So poor. There's so many faults in this film. And do you know what's funny, right? You remember the thing people really didn't like in the first trailer was Patsy's character, Leslie Jones's character. I was trying to remember the actress's name because she looked really obnoxious. Then you get to the final product. She's the most realistic person in the film.
Yeah, she's the best thing in it.
Yeah, she's the best thing in it. Although this whole film is just like so weak. The butchery that's whatever the fuck the song is meant to be. What happened?
Yeah,
I know why they did it. I mean, Sellout Boy will do anything for $1, and then Misty Elliott, it's free money.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think it is also fucked up to make the only black person in probably the whole film working in a subway.
Yeah, that's a bit odd.
Like,
That's
really
ingrained.
It's a little bit on the nose, isn't it?
I mean,
You're not going to make her a scientist?
Everybody else was a scientist except for Leslie Jones.
I think that's a bit on the nose.
I bet, right, they try and argue that in the original Ghostbusters, Egon, Ray, and Venkman were all scientists, and Ray just walked off the street because he wanted a job, which he says is, if I get paid for it, I'll do anything.
That is true.
That's true. But even if that is terribly lazy writing to just rehash that idea again.
Winston, well, yeah. Well, that's why on my T-shirt, which, by the way, after we recorded the original episode, I noticed it glows in the dark, the names, Venkman and Spangler. So that's why there's no Winston at first, because it's the Paranormal Studies, Columbia University. But anyway, so I watched this during my childhood, the original one, Anouk, not so long ago. Adam, did you say if you saw that way back?
I remember seeing Ghostbusters as a kid. I do remember, because I remember being scared of the dogs chasing. I do remember that. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll bring Lindsay Ellis in the mix now.
Oh,
and for
excellent.
once, it will actually be a very nice quote about separating the art and the artist, and about ruining childhoods. It's from their third Hobbit video. When people ask whether it's moral to separate art from the artist, what they are really asking is, how can I go back to consuming media like I did when I was a kid, when the most context I had or cared about was who the author of my favorite book was, or why I liked this actor? But as an adult, you're expected to be an ethical consumer of media, and it's somewhat inevitable that some people resent that, because consuming media the way children do is comforting. Consuming media like The Hobbit as an adult is complicated, and in this day and age, it's hard to do so innocently, and I totally understand wanting to return to that innocence. And I don't really have an argument against that worldview other than that's adulthood.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I loved The Hobbit as a child. I actually loved the 2003 video game as well. I remember being so scared of the Into the Forest section where you'd have to fight spiders and this super hard boss, so much that I would stop playing the game, and I didn't get past it for so many years later because I couldn't do it. But I remember having this feeling for that game. And I actually remember recently I went back and played it when Anouk was in London. There's a video of my cat chasing... and you pause the game, it like has ladybugs and stuff like crawling over stones. My cat was chasing the ladybugs on the screen. I've got a photo of that. But yeah, I remember just the affinity of loving this game when I was a child, and being able to sit back and just that. And it's not the game you miss. I think it's what you miss most is the not having any worries. There's nothing else in your life. There's just, you're there to soul-heartedly dive into this thing that you love.
My childhood wasn't ruined by this, but in terms of separating the art from the artist, Sony is to blame, in my opinion, and the face of Sony in this was the director, the artist who made the movie.
Yeah, I do feel that when people say, do you remember the disaster that was Ghostbusters 2016? They either say the 4 female actresses, they'll say Paul Feig, but they won't mention the production company. I think a lot of studios do get away with that a lot of the time because the production studio is just in charge of, the production studio is just the logos you see before you start a film. There's no face to it.
No,
I mean, now there is with, like, say, Kathleen Kennedy for Star Wars. Like, there is a person that people put to blame when their film doesn't go well. But when this came out, there definitely was no figurehead at Sony, like person you could imagine in charge of the Sony Pictures.
Yeah, but the one who was pushing, like, if you don't like this movie, you're a sexist, was Paul Feig.
Paul Feig definitely had Twitter breakdowns, and it's. I think that is definitely to do with the disaster that on set was. That how all this. I mean, he's a good director. Bridesmaids is excellent. I know it's a lot to do with improvisation, but the ability to control that in Bridesmaids and keep it scripted, because it's a heavily scripted film as well, is great. And that takes a real discipline to know when to draw the line, because improv to script is dangerous. I mean, you have to look at somebody that does it magnificently, which is Armando Iannucci. Armando Iannucci's strategy, especially when in the thick of it, was that his writers and such would write a script, which the actors would be given, and they would do a run through of the script. Then they would do a run through improvising, so using their own words of how to do the scene. Then they would do a scene that was a mixture of both, like use words from the script, use words that you would say, and then from that product, they would work out what was the best solution for working naturally for the actor, what they would say as a human being, and what was in the script as well. So it was a collaboration between actor and writer. And that's super interesting. And if you can master that art of being able to draw the line between dialogue and improvisation and get it back, I'm sure that's the same case for his film, In the Loop, and for the Death of Stalin. as well, because Death of Stalin definitely has all this needed script-wise because of the plot going on and the circumstances of the death of Stalin, the going on, the power grab afterwards. Like, that's an actual thing. But it also has the beautiful being able for people to say their own vernacular words in the film, and it works in the same entire way because you believe the character they've built.
Death of Stalin and Ghostbusters have that in common, that kind of like back and forth banter with the guys or your mates. Like, you feel like you are part of that world immediately because they're just there and they're making jokes, and it's not to a camera, it's just the camera happens to be there in front of friends. And that's probably why the first Ghostbusters did so well. The problem with this one is that, yes, it might be improvised, but one, if the actual actors hated each other, that's bullshit. And also, it's to camera, which makes it fake, which makes it obnoxious, which makes it annoying, because it's like trying so hard to make a joke land on the people watching. But why don't you just have jokes like amongst yourself, and then you'll be so much more connected to the first Ghostbusters.
I wondered if it's because we're British and French, because we've grown up with different comedy. I mean,
European.
As Britain, right? Britain alone has had some fun. Has Monty Python, Fawlty Towers, all these like amazing like sitcom comedy. Like, go back, like Only Fools and Horses is excellently written. It's so eloquent and so funny and so heartwarming the whole way through, and it's acting as well. So we have all that. But then in America, they've got the stand-up game is kind of where they are masterful. You know, they've got so many good stand-ups. Britain does too, but the amount of people in America that do stand-up and it's all like the Comedy Store, like that, I think that exists more in America as opposed to we make scripted comedy. So I did wonder, is the reason that we don't think this is funny is because we've grown up with something different, or is it because it's poorly written? And I think it's because it's poorly written.
Well, yes, because there are a lot of American films that, as a British person, born and bred, you enjoy because you know that it's good, and it's not exactly as if the whole of America enjoys one type of humor, and it's like over the top, overacted, kind of big plus toilet humor. Like that isn't America.
Yeah, and that's a shame, because I'm pretty sure that most people there, their heart was in the right place.
Yeah, of course. I mean, with every film.
And I talked about that a few times. Every time a movie gets made, it's kind of a miracle for that many scripts that were never made, or development hell forever. So, and if, as I also said earlier, if it was your dream and you're in it, good for you. It's great, but in the end, and you can't even call it cash. A tentative cash grab maybe, but because he didn't even succeed in being in being that entertaining, that it actually swarmed everything, just like Rampage. Apparently, it was like. Whew.
I never thought I would see a film that is so much not a film, it's a thing. Like, it's a product.
Yeah,
it's so much a product. It's like here's the sponsorship shit. Like when they have the battle, we didn't even talk about the end of the film.
I don't even remember.
So the end of the film is like
Zool? No,
not Zool. Not even Stay Puft. They fight the Ghostbusters logo. You remember that? And then she like falls in the vortex and is going to get dragged into the other like ghostly dimension. And there's also the whole bit with the dancing that doesn't happen. Does the dancing happen in the extended cut?
In the extended cut, there is more dancing, yes.
Right.
And there is also, I talked about the Muppet ejaculating like a fountain.
Yeah.
In the scene when Rowan is possessing Abby in the Chinese restaurant in the toilet, he's actually talking to her. You can hear his voice, and she is vomiting slime for a minute. Whereas in the original cut, she's just like, there's this vapor getting into her, and then she opens the door.
Oh God.
Yeah, there's more Charles Dance. He has a bit like you can follow the story of Charles Dance a bit.
Okay.
But yeah.
So okay, I have a few points on feminism, as I always do. So it actually, in the beginning, when I saw Chris Hemsworth come in, it was actually a little bit refreshing to have 4 intelligent women and a really dumb guy. Like that, it was nice because you don't see that ever. They made him so stupid though, like so stupid. It was almost like I've stopped believing this. Now, if you watch something like Marilyn Monroe, of course, made her career on this. Sadly, it's kind of tragic because she apparently was very intelligent and wanted to be seen as clever, but never was allowed to because she was voluptuous and beautiful, and a woman. So she made her career on, you know, dumb blonde secretary, right? Which was what Chris Hemsworth was doing. So as much as I understand the point, it doesn't make sense because this is a Ghostbusters reboot. And so in the first Ghostbusters, I actually don't think Dana was an anti-feminist. Like, I think she was actually quite strong. She had some really good lines. Of course, she fell in love with the guy that persisted. But I honestly, like, I think she was actually quite a strong woman. And so in this film, it felt a little bit missed because they were making fun of like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s women characters. Do you know what I mean? Rather than like maybe
time period or the age?
Time period.
Right.
Like in films.
How do you mean?
In the sense of Chris Hemsworth was basically as stupid as someone in the 40s, 50s, like a secretary in 40s, 50s films. How women were shown in that time period.
Right, okay.
Rather than the 80s. Maybe, of course. But in the Ghostbusters, the first one, I think actually the women weren't as strong as the men. Like, we still had a lot to work on.
Think about the original secretary. That's what I'm trying to think about. The comparison is like, she's great.
Which was my point with Marilyn Monroe. She was like the original secretary. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm not explaining myself well. I'm just saying that Chris Hemsworth was written like a 40s secretary.
I've seen in interviews that a lot of Chris Hemsworth stuff is just him improvising.
Yeah, fine. Like, and it was great. But if you're in a Ghostbusters movie, I don't think it made sense because I kept on thinking, but in the first Ghostbusters, there wasn't anyone that stupid. Like, Dana wasn't that dumb.
I think
so what kind of...
Or the original standard girl, like
the sexy lamp.
No, I understand it. I just mean that it wasn't well done because I kept on thinking in the first Ghostbusters there wasn't a sexy lamp. I never thought that there was one. So I didn't understand. It just didn't feel natural. Like, if they somehow made, I don't know, the fact that I'm thinking about this maybe just makes probably failed.
I think you're trying to give this movie too much credit than it deserves. I don't think they even attempt to get anywhere near feminism and addressing equality.
Ding, 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 jar.
Oh, shit, I have to put in the jar. Sorry.
It's kind of my fault.
Well, seeing as the jar's open, I may as well discuss a little bit. I asked Anouk earlier before we started this episode, I went, in this film, are the female characters ever at a disadvantage because they're females? And I don't think they are.
No, it wasn't a film like that.
They don't try. I think, and the argument they'll go is like, "Oh, we were writing a film where the women have the power." I'm like, okay, all credit to that. But Incredibles 2 does that without even. You don't even. It's not so obvious. It's so there. It's just like super well done. That's how you do it.
It's because they marketed it as that. Like, these are women. Like, yay, we're empowering women. And it's like Incredibles 2 was so much more of a female-driven film, and it didn't have to like. It's not like a pie in the face, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And then I thought, I was like, in the original Ghostbusters, if you wrote the original Ghostbusters again, if they had the same quality of script and had 4 women, there would be no problem because the original Ghostbusters would work with 4 women. It would actually, there's nothing in that film that makes them have to be men or female.
No.
The genders are, you could swap them if you wanted.
Yeah.
It's like a play. Like you can have a female play a man's part and a man play a woman's part. Like some parts are interchangeable. I feel that with the first Ghostbusters, they could have easily been female, which is probably where the idea came from. But somewhere down the line, it just something happened.
It was the first one was so full of fart jokes that you had to add queef jokes. Oh, it wasn't, was it?
I don't think there's a single fart joke in the first one. I think it's just.
No, there are no jokes, actually. As we said multiple times, it's just organically in terms of...
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Is that like situational comedy? Kind of that.
Yeah, you're laughing at somebody's situation. Yes.
Yeah, rather than gags and
gags, and then observational comedy is commenting on something you see and making it funny. Yeah,
right.
yeah. That Ghostbusters one would definitely be a situational comedy. The events that they are in it are funny because they are like inequipped to handle the situations, and the ridiculousness of like ghosts as well makes it funny.
They keep a straight face. Well, they don't laugh at their jokes, which they don't do here, but they're so quirky and weird, and so you don't really believe that they're real human beings. Again, it's weird.
Well, I didn't believe
Yeah.
it was a real world. Like nobody says these things.
Yeah, it just didn't feel right.
The best dialogue in the world, you forget, is dialogue. This film is just so many things are bad. I'd like to, before we get, I feel we're wrapping up, right? I think we're running out. I'd like to bring in a quote my father said to me, because my mum and dad were out for the day. Me and Anouk were watching this again. They came back and my dad sat down and watched the last 10-15 minutes of the film, and he obviously realizing it was a bad film. He said to me, "Why are you watching this?" I was like, "Because Anouk hasn't seen it. I saw this at the cinema." He said, "You've watched this shite twice?" I'm like, "Well, now Yann's watched it 4 times in 2 different languages." So yeah.
Yes. I'll just before we get into the ratings, read one Rotten Tomato review.
Oh, okay.
The Rotten Tomato is either critics or audience members, so you obviously have disparities most of the time between the 2 scores. This one was 5 stars from an audience member.
Okay.
Don't even listen to what the sexist detractors are pouting so much about. This excellent, hilarious reboot is even better than the original movie, with great actresses playing intelligent women who can kick more ass than a lot of men, and the special effects are sensational.
I would say to this person, if you're listening, you're probably not. You probably switched off because we're all sexist detractors, apparently. Go watch The Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
You will understand what a good female-driven film is. There are so many female-driven films out there. You just need to find them. Full of intelligent women who can kick more ass than men. Like, they are around. This is not one of them. I am sorry.
That's just reminded me of the final, like the action sequence where they're like jumping all over and the Ghostbusters music's going like and they're like shooting the ghosts and punching the ghosts and sucking them into a trap. And I'm just like, this wasn't in the first one. Just this whole. Is this film just trying to be another? It's like it was caught in between of trying to be the original Ghostbusters and try and be like a modern day, what Hollywood thinks a modern day action film is.
Yeah, it tried to be quite a lot of different things.
Where one of the funniest jokes in the film is like they arrive at the final building in the first film, and all the crowd are all there like clapping and like, yeah, you're gonna do it, and they're like, yeah, we're the Ghostbusters, we're gonna go and kick some ass.
Yeah,
and then it cuts to them slowly trudging up the staircase. Like normal people.
Yeah. I think the problem is that if you try way too hard to make sure that you are, I don't know, pushing your political agenda or whatever agenda you have, you're probably going to fail because no one wants to hear it.
Nobody,
especially in the entertainment industry.
Everyone hates a play or a film that's preachy. We use that word a lot. You hate when somebody, nobody likes being just told what to think. People like to make up their own minds because that's what the human race does. That's why we're here. That's why we make intelligent films. Not like this, but we make films that ask questions because we go, if I don't agree with what the film was saying, at least the film can illustrate why I don't agree with it.
Yeah, of course.
This film wants you to see that women can bust ghosts. And yes, absolutely. Women can do anything. Women can do anything that men can do. That isn't the question. It's just we shouldn't have to be told that you have to like these women. It's like everyone likes women. If you're one of these people that hates women, it's like, okay, but that's you, and this film isn't going to change your mind. It's like, I don't know why they thought Ghostbusters was going to be the vessel for eliminating the prejudice and the negativity and the inequality, imbalance between men and women. I'm like, this film was never going to do that. I don't think a film could do that.
I think that was probably my point about the Chris Hemsworth thing. It's like, why did you think that this film was the time when you would talk about how women used to be portrayed in films in the 40s and 50s. Do you know what I mean? It's like a kind of a random time to be like, oh yeah, this Chris Hemsworth is now going to be, because immediately when I was watching it, I was like, but Dana was actually quite strong. So why is he really dumb? Like, I don't understand this.
Well, I mean, even think about the femme fatale genre of film with the strong female like character back then.
Yeah, I mean, they were highly sexualized.
Yeah, they were highly sexualized, but they also at points in those films had moments where they were like stronger than the men.
Yeah,
you know,
of
it was a
course.
terrible.
It's a learning process.
Yes, it was like, even though they were dressed up as sexy lamps and desired by the men, they had moments of like, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
Nowadays we need to have it's the opposite way around. I am no longer a sexy lamp and I can do these things. There's a whole separate argument that we won't get into because we're not the people to have it about should women be the sexualization of women and what side you stand on that. We don't have the information and the knowledge to discuss that on this podcast.
Yeah, sexualization of kids is disgusting.
Of course,
I mean, it's just, again, it happens a lot. Should we go into the rating?
Does anyone else have anything to say before we finish this movie? Anything else springing to mind?
Well, she talked a second, not about the movie exactly, but that's one of the main thing why I'm not a fan of Amy Schumer, because she said on record that there is a massive problem globally of men hating women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is bollocks. There are some few crazy. But
in Western society, yes. In other societies, probably not. Like in, for example, Asia, like Pakistan, India, Africa, there's probably quite a lot of misogyny. Well, definitely a lot of misogyny, a lot more than
female genital mutilation still exists. And
so with that, I agree, but I don't think she's. But I agree with you because she's not intelligent enough to be able to think like that.
Yeah, but what I understood what you were saying, like it's hate is a powerful word, just like racism. A friend of mine had a friend who was from Lebanon and who was, let's say, a real racist, which meant that he would see a little Jew. The first reflex he would have is he would want to skin him, or like,
whoa,
yeah, like, okay, I hate that person so much that I need to kill that person right now. That's pure hatred, racism.
Yeah.
So that they are strong words. All of these are strong words when there's meaning behind them.
Yeah, and I think as well, like the hatred and misogyny that we have in the West is a lot more complicated than that. Like they see a woman and they want to fucking kill them. Like that is, it's not really that's not what's going on.
Media always bears the brunt of society's woes and hatreds, because you think back to the guy, they blame the guy that killed John Lennon on reading The Catcher in the Rye.
Oh yeah, because it's the book.
Because the book made him do it. You know, all it's a constant stream of people saying that video games lead to violence. All this, and media has always bore the brunt of modern day politics.
That's interesting, actually. I've always thought that, but never been able to like say it in words. But that's actually really interesting. And it's probably because everyone owns a TV. And so it's like everywhere that you see, it's like media. And so it's also really easy to not blame yourself, right? That we have Donald Trump, that we voted for Donald Trump, that we voted for... No, I'm saying human beings.
The royal we.
No, I'm just saying human beings voted for Donald Trump. We voted for Brexit. We voted for racist agendas as well. We voted for immigrants to be caged, kids to be caged, and all these kind of horrible things that's going on. It's so easy to be like, you know what, it's the media. It's like, yeah, okay, it might be, but it's also, you know, a lot of other things. Like, it's easy to blame.
Do your research is essentially it. You know, don't just believe what you're told at face value is essentially
definitely
the truth.
Definitely.
And I think it's in the world where it's so easy to click on Wikipedia and then find out. I think the art of researching anything is kind of slowly fading away.
Yeah, and also
where nowadays it's more important than ever. We need to know what we're doing and what we're saying.
Yeah, but like also statistics are also a really good thing to know. Like if you have a point, look at the statistics and it will probably tell you if you're wrong or if you're right.
Yeah, statistics. In the last stages of my Navy days, I was in headquarters on board the main Charles de Gaulle, the aircraft carrier, and I was in charge of doing statistics.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I knew from that time that it's a load of bollocks because if you're like, there are so many variables that I used to have to do to redo calculus 20 times and had 20 different results. So I'm a bit wary of statistics, and they also always ask a small percentage of the population. So anyway, since Libya and when I became woke, as you say today, when you don't know how to conjugate verbs, I try to see both sides of the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Instead of just, no, they're evil, I just listen to them.
No, of course. Like maybe statistics from different places as well. Like, I think statistics are important, especially when it comes to like how many people were, like when it comes to crime and like political things that you look up. Like, but I would say, yeah, basically do your research. Like, it's not just look up once, see a statistics, and then freak out. Like.
Yeah, if you want more of that stuff we just talked about, you can listen to our Bin Laden the One Man Show episode.
That's very true, actually.
Yeah, we talk a lot about oof,
It's
deep
a heavy
stuff.
one.
So
Heavy.
what's that rating thing about, Adam?
Yeah, because you guys have refined it. So in the previous, actually that comes out later. That's like episode in a couple of months. We have a guest, and I try and explain the rating, and the other two interject saying, "Yeah, we got some other categories." Okay, so nowadays we've refined it. We used to just be good, bad, and just plain standard. That's still the name of the podcast. That ain't going to change. But we do have some other tiers as well. We have masterpiece, which is usually a film that is recent, hasn't sat long enough, doesn't have like a legacy to it. If it has sat longer and has a legacy to it, then it becomes legendary. And if we have a personal affinity to it, we can put it in our vault of movies we treasure. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I just met yesterday a kind of a Maslow needs triangle. So you've got at the top, the vault, impactful and personal level, legendary, just under, perfect in any way, legendary, perfect but too recent for legendary, that's masterpiece, and then good, bad, standard, which the good and bad is self-explanatory. They may have a flair, which is an adjective or phrase to help locate a film within is the rating category. Because at some point we had like, it's high in the good or middle good, or so now it will make sense what my flair is for this one. And just plain standard basically is either they did not even try, or they tried too hard, or it was a cash grab, or any of those similar reasons.
Yeah. Okay. So with that in mind, Anouk Yann was Ghostbusters. Answer the Call 2016. Good, bad, or just plain standard? Anouk?
I think this film is I don't know.
Do you want a second? Shall I ask Yann? I'll ask Yann. Yann?
You're disgustingly man-interrupt, even though she wasn't talking.
I could see that she wanted time to think, so I'm like, I'll get let her have time to think.
No, it's cool.
I would say it's bad, with a long flair, missed opportunity, and kind of a masterclass in failure.
That's very true. Yeah, I'm leaning on bad as well. I was thinking standard, but I think standard can have some good in it sometimes. It's just like, I didn't even try. Like, bad. It was bad. I think because I don't remember much. Like, forgettable.
Bad with the flair and forgettable. I'm going to refuse to rate this film. This film is so poor. It's not a film. It's a thing. It's a product. I'm not rating it. It's this is unrateable.
Yeah.
Uncategorizable. Anything you want to say. When it comes to one day, if we have a book of like us talking about each film, when it has like what each podcastee thought of it, and it has like a little tally saying Anouk said it was bad with this flair. If this one for me, my one would just be blank. It would just be this is disgraceful. Like, nah.
It's tough because it's really sad, because I think everyone knew that this was going to be bad, and so they used their gender agenda to to make sure, I don't know, that people would go and see it because otherwise they're sexist or I don't know, whatever. It's like, don't do that to people. That's totally manipulative. And, you know, you made a profit of it, like, move on. You made money, well done, but we ain't happy.
It all stemmed from that one trailer, and then it just got downhill from here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't really ask Anouk this, but I can ask Yann this. Did seeing this, does this change how you look back on Ghostbusters now? Has this really not only killed any hope for the future Ghostbusters, but has this killed the original Ghostbusters, do you think?
No,
you?
When I said it didn't ruin my childhood, it didn't. But because, well, if, you know, I'm a big, massive, and crazy fan about Hamlet, which is basically at the start just a text from Shakespeare, which is interpreted by so many people during so many years that I can't really ruin everything. It's just different approaches to it. But I'm a massive, like, I can basically, I would need, I think, 2 weeks to basically be able to have all the lines, like the 4 hours and lines in my head. If I know the whole structure and the little lines pretty much. But Ghostbusters, I wasn't ever a ghost head. It didn't transform my life as it did for some people extraordinarily well, as we see in the ghost heads.
Wow.
Just like magicians who go some start to get girls, but some to do good and go in children's hospitals and everything. Ghost heads do exactly that kind of thing. You feel it's a power for good. Clearly, I've not really mingled with any fandoms except web series in my past life, when I used to do that kind of stuff back in France. But there are some shady hatred happening in conventions and stuff, as always with human beings. But I have a feeling that it was the wrong fandom to piss off.
Yeah, I feel that the fans of Ghostbusters, like I don't think they'll get any new Ghostbusters fans off the back of this, but I don't think it affects the original two films. I think the original two films are good enough in themselves, and because they're good enough, and also because it's so far away, it's so long ago now. For example, I'll use Alien. I mean, Alien Covenant doesn't make me think badly of Alien and Aliens because they were so long ago and they're such good pieces.
Yeah, if something's really good, I don't think something bad is going to change that.
I disagree.
Really?
Yeah, I think if sometimes
maybe Star Wars.
Some things can go back and haunt you. I mean, the prequels killed a lot of, it killed a lot of hope.
Yeah, I think Star Wars. Maybe I retract that statement. I think though. Maybe the only good thing that this film has done, it made me see the first one and made me realize that I loved it.
Well, yeah, we talked about it. I thought we would originally the plan was just to talk about this, but I thought, it makes sense to talk about the first one as well, because it's important. We need the context, we need the love, the franchise, how good the first one is, and then what the second one, sorry, apologies to Ghostbusters 2, the reboot did to it.
I think it also depends how your brain works, because when you on this whole childhood running and everything, so let's say you've been a fan from childhood of the original Ghostbusters, this one goes out, you hate it, and every time you think about Ghostbusters again, instead of thinking about those good times where you were young, the first thing that comes to mind is the whole debacle about the marketing campaign and that new movie. Obviously, it ruined the whole experience because it was so impactful today that it just erased all those good memories, which supposedly never happens because long-term memory is way more anchored in your mind than the recent stuff. But instead, in those cases, I don't think it really can ruin. And also, when you're most impressionable when you're younger, anyway. It was the whole thing, like, those man babies, they think that we will ruin their childhood. Yeah, but no, that was not a thing, I think. No.
I think Ghostbusters will live to see another day. I do. Maybe not in film form. The video game was very good. I mean, they made a cash grab video game tie-in with this movie that I'm not going to start on. It's terrible. But
through the conventions and through ghost heads and through all the
Yes.
things that they do, that it will live on for sure.
I do feel in the future maybe we'll see Ghostbusters again, but I think it'll have to be by someone of our generation or the generation after that wanted to do something with like the original Ghostbusters. I think Dan Aykroyd, especially the passing of Harold Ramis and the negative effects of this movie have had. I think the people that were involved in the first one just want to step away from it now and go, look, it's kind of done.
Yeah.
I think it needs somebody fresh to come back and find and show the world a new version of what they loved in the first one.
Yeah, or
Instead of trying to recapture the glory of what the first one was, which this film failed to do.
have something come, someone like Tarantino, who basically has so many inspirations and references that you might argue that he's not making his own movies, he's just collages, but it's so well done and so on point that I think he started to work on a Trek script, Tarantino.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. For the first time ever, Tarantino is doing something that is not original. Is Welcome to Hollywood thingy from the Sharon Tate murder. So he may very well do a Star Trek thingy. If it's, he always said he was doing 10 movies. Is that the new one, the 9th?
Yes,
Well,
because it was Hateful Eight, wasn't it? Was number 8.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for listening. I hope it was entertaining.
Yeah,
Thank you,
this went long and
guys.
talked about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Thank you again for all the Patreon
Love.
friends.
Yes.
And
You.
we're past 10,000. We'll be doing something special for the 19th of August, which is the day 1 year anniversary.
Amazing.
Yes.
I'm going just jet setting back in France for a few weeks, but then I'm back
And
for the day.
we are also flying away to Brighton and London next week.
Yep.
Yeah, we are. We're away.
I'm in Worthing this weekend, so we won't be very far, I guess.
No, you and Anouk are pretty close together, and then I arrive probably when you've left.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And we were
Adam.
Anouk.
and Yann. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.